Imagine that you are part of a famous organization of werewolves that helps people. But the problem is that when it was time for you to transform for the first time into a wolf, you only turn into a small puppy. Well, that's what we'll see today, so let's begin. The movie starts with a little guy named Fred, who in the middle of the night chases after a pack of wolves and manages to find them thanks to a moonstone ring that lit up when it detected wolves nearby. These courageous wolves were the heroes of the city, as they dedicated themselves to rescuing people in danger. However, people were unaware of their efforts and feared them. The leader of the wolves was named Flashheart, and he was happy to see that his son Freddy couldn't wait 6 more years to become a wolf like him. Next, we meet the villain of the story, a wolf named Hotspur, who is Flashheart's brother and lives embittered by living in his shadow. That night, Freddy wanted to help the pack of wolves and tried to rescue several people from a fire. But since this little guy was so clumsy, he did everything wrong and accidentally ended up hurting his uncle Hotspur, which angered Hotspur even more because he couldn't believe that this useless kid would someday become the new leader of the pack. Later, as Flashheart and his son were heading home, Freddy was almost run over by an ice cream truck driven by a whimsical ice cream vendor named Foxwell Crip, who was so eccentric that he even had conversations with his stuffed monkey. Flashheart, upon seeing his son in danger, leaps in front of the truck and saves him. However, the ice cream vendor Crip, upon seeing the wolf taking away the child, thinks that he is going to be attacked. So, he and his monkey head into the forest to rescue him. When the ice cream vendor finds them, he gathers enough courage to confront the wolf. Nevertheless, while Crip is demonstrating his clumsy martial arts moves, he stumbles and ends up on the edge of a cliff. Flashheart then runs towards him to save him. But the ice cream vendor thinks Flashheart is trying to eat him, so he throws a stone, and both of them fall into the void. Afterwards, the evil Hotspur, who was in hiding, appears to drag Freddy away from the scene. As Hotspur leaves, we see that the ice cream vendor had already found the werewolf detection ring. The pack gathers to bid farewell to Flashheart, and on the same day, Hotspur doesn't miss the opportunity to secure his position as the leader of the pack. 6 long years passed, and the day arrived when the clumsy Freddy would transform into a wolf for the first time, meant to assume his role as the leader of the pack. However, Freddy was scared because his uncle Hotspur always told him that he wasn't worth it. Meanwhile, Hotspur was trying to convince the veteran members of the pack that he should continue being the leader, but they reject him, telling him that in the past 6 years he couldn't retrieve the ring that the ice cream vendor had stolen. When the time came for Freddy's first transformation, he received the moonlight but ended up turning into a little puppy. As wolves and dogs are archenemies, the pack believed that Freddy had lost the moon ring, so they gave him 24 hours to recover it and prove that he could become a wolf. Hotspur's children then dye the puppy's fur red and put a silver collar on him to prevent him from turning human. This way, they were sure Freddy wouldn't recover the ring, and Hotspur, their father, would remain the pack's leader. But nothing could stop Freddy. He escapes from the place, but being clueless about crossing the street, he almost gets hit by a car. Just then, a kind little female puppy named Batty appears and helps him survive. Batty sniffs Freddy and tells him that he has a very strange scent. Although Freddy was about to confess that he's a wolf, he ultimately decides not to tell her anything to avoid creating rivalry between them. Even though Batty saved him, Freddy tells her that he prefers to continue on his own and leaves. However, when he realizes that life on the streets is tough, he asks Batty to guide him to find the ice cream vendor Crip. In exchange, he promises her a delicious meal. Batty agrees, but warns Freddy that in order to continue the journey together, he must act like a dog. She teaches him how to do so. When they arrive at the ice cream vendor Crip's house, Batty tells Freddy that he should go on alone because the place is very spooky, and she doesn't want to accompany him. Meanwhile, the ice cream vendor had become obsessed with proving the existence of werewolves. On that full moon night, he seemed particularly unhinged, hoping to encounter one. Freddy breaks into the ice cream vendor's home and finds a moon ring, which turns out to be a fake. At that moment, Crip appears to kick Freddy out, but when he sees the ring light up, he starts suspecting that the dog might actually be a wolf. Crip takes Freddy to his lab and confesses that he became an ice cream vendor because he thought everyone would love him and want to be his friend. However, people rejected his stories about werewolves, thinking he was crazy. Suddenly, Crip analyzes the puppy, and just as he was about to discover that it's a wolf, brave Batty bursts in and helps Freddy break free. Freddy manages to escape with the ring. However, when Batty asks Freddy to pay her with a delicious meal, she overhears Freddy saying that he needs to go back to his pack because his time is running out. Batty thinks he's trying to abandon her and gets upset, recalling how she was also abandoned when she was a young puppy. Freddy tries to console her by sharing how he disappointed his family for not being what they wanted him to be. Batty reassures him that what truly matters is on the inside. While they talk, the dog catchers arrive and capture them, locking them in a terrible cell with 3,000 dogs. Just below their cell lives a fearsome monster they call the Ogre of Dogs. Meanwhile, the ice cream vendor discovers that Freddy is a werewolf and goes after him, intending to accuse him of using a puppy to steal his ring. However, Hotspur kicks him out and doesn't pay much attention until he realizes that the puppy thief is his nephew, Freddy. Hotspur then goes to the dog pound to find Freddy. Naturally, Freddy is happy to see his uncle because he believed he would rescue him. However, his evil uncle only wants the ring back. When Hotspur retrieves the ring, he has Freddy locked up again with the other dogs. Additionally, we find out that Hotspur is the director of the Heartless Dog Pound, which had one brutal goal: to sacrifice the dogs and use their fur for human wigs. When Freddy returns to the cell with the other dogs, he discovers that his friend Batty is angry with him for not telling her earlier that he was a werewolf. Later, a man comes to feed the dogs, and Batty takes advantage of the cell door being open to block it using a bone. She then convinces a little puppy to leave the cell and press a button to free them. However, she presses the wrong button and accidentally triggers the emergency alarm, bringing the staff to the scene, looking for the culprits. In an attempt to help his friends, Freddy takes the blame for everything and creates a mess with his urine. As a result, he's sent to the cell with the fearsome dog-eating ogre. Meanwhile, Hotspur arrives home with the moon ring. The housekeeper realizes that Hotspur had been hiding Freddy from her, so she decides to take action herself to rescue him. Things were also getting complicated for Hotspur, as the ice cream vendor Crip had discovered he was a werewolf and was determined to hunt him, along with his entire pack. Meanwhile, Freddy is taken to the ogre's cell like the other dogs. Feeling extremely frightened, he begins to call for help from the other dogs. Upon hearing his cries, the other dogs escape from their cell to rescue him. The story takes an unexpected turn when the little dog discovers that the massive dog-eating monster is actually Flashheart, his dad, who had been imprisoned there for 6 years. It turns out that after falling into the abyss, Flashheart had managed to survive. However, the dog catchers captured him and locked him up in that dreadful place on the orders of his wicked brother Hotspur, who only sought to become the leader of the pack. Just then, the other dogs approach the cell to harm Flashheart, but they can't hurt him because Freddy stops them, revealing that the wolf they were seeing was his father. Flashheart becomes furious upon discovering that his brother Hotspur planned to sacrifice the dogs to make human wigs. With the help of the dogs, they manage to free themselves, and they all try to escape the dog pound. However, the ruthless administrator of the place appears, ready to stop them. Thankfully, the housekeeper also arrives to confront the woman, giving the others time to escape. Later, we see that the time for Freddy to prove that he can retrieve the moon ring and take charge of the pack has arrived. But since Freddy doesn't show up, Hotspur tells the pack that he's declaring himself the new leader after supposedly recovering the moon ring. However, Freddy interrupts and reveals to everyone that Hotspur is a fraud. He explains that it was actually him who recovered the moon ring, and then he reveals that Hotspur had kept his father Flashheart locked up in the dog pound for 6 years just to seize power. Suddenly, the ice cream vendor Crip, who had discovered the werewolves' hideout, arrives and starts shooting them with silver bullets, causing all the werewolves to faint. He then notices Freddy and realizes that he's the boy he believed the wolves had devoured. Hotspur gets up, strikes the ice cream vendor, and faces Freddy. After a long chase throughout the house, the confrontation culminates on the rooftop. Seeing this, all the werewolves and other dogs begin to howl, showing their support for Freddy. Bathed in the moonlight, Freddy transforms into a dog and, with a powerful howl, manages to defeat his uncle Hotspur. Once again, his father Flashheart becomes the leader of the pack. Finally, the dog pound administrator receives her comeuppance and is taken into custody. Later, we see that the ice cream vendor achieves his goal of making others happy and gains new friends, and Hotspur's children are made to serve the new pack formed by dogs and wolves, which now live together harmoniously in the Looping Mansion. Thanks for watching. Please like and subscribe for more interesting movies.